elevator. It was 11:45 p.m. The rain had intensified, and the streets were empty. Ethan, having left work late, hurried toward his apartment. When he reached the entrance, he shook off the wetness from his coat and took a deep breath. He glanced around. The street was eerily silent. He pulled out his key, unlocked the door, and stepped inside. The dim light in the hallway flickered more faintly than usual. Ethan quickly made his way to the elevator and pressed the call button. The elevator above made mechanical sounds, as if it hadn't been maintained in years. The doors opened. The inside resembled a dark box. Hesitant at first, Ethan stepped inside and pressed the button for the 8th floor. The doors closed, and the elevator began to move. As it passed the 1st floor, the lights suddenly flickered and went out. The elevator stopped. Ethan panicked for a moment in the darkness. He reached for the buttons, but there was no response. He pulled out his phone and used its dim light to illuminate the inside of the elevator. Just then, a faint creaking sound echoed, a thin, metallic noise. It seemed to come from above. He looked up at the ceiling. In the corner, he noticed a movement. At first, he thought it was just a trick of his mind, but then he saw it again. A small hand, hanging down from the ceiling. Ethan's heart began to race. He blinked rapidly, but the hand remained there. Suddenly, the ceiling panel creaked open. A face appeared from within, but this face was not human. Its eyes were hollow and empty, and its lips were twisted in a strange, unsettling smile. It tilted its head and began to stare at Ethan. Panicking, Ethan tried to force open the elevator doors, but they were tightly shut. This must be a dream, he whispered to himself. But the face spoke. Its voice was deep and echoing.
You called me. It's in. Now, I will start again.
Ethan tried to scream with all his might, but no sound came out. The elevator suddenly jolted and began to move again. However, none of the buttons had been pressed. The elevator, instead of going up, rapidly descended.
No! No!
Ethan pressed the buttons, but the elevator ignored him. The face still hung from the ceiling, never taking its eyes off of him. Ethan struggled to breathe. The elevator stopped, and the doors opened. But instead of the ground floor, it revealed an endless void. The outside of the elevator was nothing but darkness. The face spoke again, its voice echoing in the emptiness.
At this point, there's no turning back.
Ethan tried to back away, but the floor inside the elevator suddenly became slick with a slippery liquid. His feet slipped, and he fell. From the darkness, dozens of hands reached toward him. Each one was moving closer. The last thing he heard was a high-pitched laugh reverberating in his ears. The elevator doors closed, and everything went dark. Ethan woke up with a jolt, only to realize he was no longer in the elevator, but surrounded by an endless void. The space felt thick with silence, and the darkness pressed against his skin. It was as though time no longer existed here, each moment stretching on for eternity. His body ached, as if he had been lying there for hours, but the fear still gripped him. Something had changed, though. The terror that had once been his only companion now felt more tangible, almost as if it were alive, feeding off his fear. As he stood, Ethan noticed a strange sensation in the air, an energy or a presence that was both cold and suffocating. The stillness was deafening, yet Ethan could feel something moving in the shadows. The sound of faint breathing tickled his ears, but when he turned to look, there was nothing there. The elevator, or whatever it was now, creaked again. The walls, once smooth and metallic, now seemed to pulse as if they were alive. His mind raced. Where was he? Was he still trapped inside the elevator, or had it somehow transported him to a place beyond reality? Every step he took felt heavier, and his movements became sluggish. Ethan tried to keep moving, but the deeper he went into the darkness, the more it felt as though the very ground beneath him was shifting, pulling him in every direction. It was as though the elevator itself was alive, dragging him into some otherworldly realm. The low whispers grew louder, and then suddenly, the air became thick with a presence. Ethan felt cold fingers graze the back of his neck. His pulse quickened as he turned to face the unknown. But there was no escape. The walls began to close in, the void tightening around him. A voice, familiar yet distorted, echoed through the space. "You can't leave," it whispered. "You called me, and now you belong to me." Ethan's body froze as a shadowy figure appeared in the distance. It was not human, not fully, yet its form seemed to distort with every passing moment, shifting in and out of focus. It was as if reality itself couldn't hold it together. With a scream that was lost in the endless void, Ethan ran, but the shadow was faster. Every corner he turned, it was there, watching, waiting. The final moment came when he reached a door, an exit perhaps. His heart pounded in his chest as he reached for the handle, but before he could open it, the shadow lunged at him, its cold hands wrapping around him, pulling him into the abyss. The elevator doors closed behind him, and the darkness consumed everything. Ethan was gone.